So, for those of you who don't know, we are in Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. And just by happenstance, call it a coincidence if you will, the VA has reported in the last few days that the Veteran Crisis Hotline has been experiencing glitches and has gone down for what they claim to be short periods of time, and it has affected a very small percentage of their callers. It's also important to know that at this point, what are we here? September 26th or something like that of 2024, the VA has reported, according to their researchers, the veteran suicide rate is down to about 17 veterans commit suicide a month, down from 22, which was the number for who knows how many years. And whether that number has been accurately reported year after year, God only knows. But I found an article about this explanation of the veteran crisis line going down. And I thought that we would go through it quickly. And just kind of, I don't know, I feel like I have some feelings about it that would be maybe important, maybe not important, but I think are interesting to share. I think that when we are now 2, maybe almost 3 years out from ending the longest war in this country's history, and we've talked about this issue of veteran suicide for days and days, upon weeks, upon months, upon years and years, that there would be some kind of concrete place or some kind of concrete thing for veterans who are experiencing these things to go. And part of the reason I believe that veterans don't always seek out the help that they already know is there is because of things like we're going to discuss. And even though the VA and the crisis hotline is going to tell us that it affected a very, very small number of their people, of their callers, it affected somebody. Is it safe to say that it affected at least 17 people? Now, it's probably a stretch to say that if it affected 17 people, that could have been 17 people in that day or in a day that may have committed the act. Maybe that's a stretch. But let's go through it and we can just talk about it real quick. Here it is. Lawmakers want veteran affairs leaders to better secure the department's suicide prevention hotline amid a spate of short-term outages in the emergency lifeline, even though officials have insisted those challenges have not resulted in widespread problems for operations. On Monday, the Senate Affairs Committee Chairman Jon Tester from Montana released a letter to the VA Secretary McDonough asking for a more comprehensive review of the system's reliability and resilience, backup and redundancy procedures, and related areas to ensure the crisis line is available every second of every day. While it appears that in each recent incident, the department acted quickly to resolve the issues, the technology issues, routed calls attempted to re-engage all drop calls or chats, the volume of problems is concerning, is what John Tester wrote. So let's the Department of Veterans Affairs, it says here, acted quickly. The VA committee, the Senate Veterans Affairs Committee, is now asking for a review of the system's reliability, resilience, backup, and redundancy procedures. So here's the thing. This Veterans Hotline has been around for quite a while, for many years. It was around before I went on my second deployment in 2011. And I'll tell you how I know that. We'll scroll up here to the top of this. So this Veteran Crisis Line, this logo at the top, and then the picture of this woman. This woman is a veteran. Well, I've been on these advertisements. Before I deployed back in 2011, I had a very good friend named Jared, who I haven't spoke to in some years. And he lived in Austin, and it was Austin, Texas. Well, he lived in Round Rock, Texas, which was by Austin. And I went with him to this photo shoot. He was also part of this thing, and he was on these advertisements that went everywhere, these Veteran Crisis Line posters and pamphlets and magnets and stickers and all this stuff went. Him and I went together to that, and we both took pictures. In fact, the guy that facilitated the photo shoot framed for Jared and I pictures of us together and alone, just because it was cool that a couple buddies were coming in to do something to be a voice for veterans, and I guess they found it touching. So it was appreciated. It's really cool. And in fact, that frame of pictures is sitting in my mother's basement at this point in time, but I do have it. So the point is that I know for sure at least 2010-ish, if not just then or just after, is when this Veterans Crisis Line started. And I'll say this, from what I know of it, it's gotten a whole lot better. And I will not take anything away from them. I'm sure that they've saved many lives, and they've done great work. But this thing is 11 or 12 years old, minimum. Why are we now asking for backup plans? Why are we now asking for redundancies? Why are we now asking for any kind of emergency, oh shit, this thing is not working plan? Isn't this something? So in the military culture, we plan for these types of things, right? There's a commander's intent is put out. There's all this organization that goes on, all this information flows. And then we get down to putting together like our equipment lists, our personnel lists, our requests for our supply requests. We get all of our soldiers and all of our stuff accounted for. We figure out what everyone needs, what everyone's going to carry as far as like weapon systems and specialty equipment and water, food, and blah, blah, blah. Everyone's going to have their stuff. Then we get down to rehearsals. We rehearse what we're going to do. And it's no different for things like this, or at least I don't think that it should be. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong about all of this. But it would seem to me that after 12 years of operation, they should have a plan that works. They've had a lot of time to simulate this thing going down and what's everyone going to do. And so, like, I hate to I hate for it to sound like I'm throwing shade on these things, because I know that they've done good work, and I know that they do good things, and they are saving lives, and they are helping veterans, and they are there. But when you read these things, or you hear these stories, or you watch these videos, I don't want to say it makes me upset and it angers me, but it's frustrating. It's frustrating because for so many years, for so long, we've been taking part in these conversations about veterans committing suicide. And now we have this thing that they claim has the ability to produce data to prove that it's working. And now they have these emergencies happening. They have these emergencies where now this fallback plan for veterans is not there. And so we're going to get into the numbers here. So let's just keep reading. I don't want to get on the soapbox and then waste all of our time doing that. I mean, you guys don't want to just hear me spout off at the mouth. The letter's release comes during National Suicide Prevention Month. We just talked about that. And just a few days after a House Veterans Affairs Committee hearing into the hotline's operations, Dr. Matthew Miller, the executive director of the VA's Office on Suicide Prevention, testified on the 18th of September that the Veterans Crisis Line had suffered 12 notable outages in the last 12 months. Now, that's down from last year, from 2023. Most of those were a result of technology issues outside of VA operations. Okay. What does that mean? What is it, did we have, like, did the internet go out in the server room? We're talking about the United States federal government, right? We're talking about a government who has the power to bamboozle, in my opinion, its people, its citizens, to keep paying super inflated rates on taxes and everything else to fund wars that we have no involvement in or shouldn't, to fund all kinds of craziness. But we don't have the ability to have virtually ironclad internet access for programs. Not just Veterans Crisis Hotline, but any program. I'm sure that the Crisis Hotline wasn't the only program that suffered external issues that caused them to go down. And see, this is what I mean. Like when we get in this studio, just me, or when it's Jason and I, or over on Rumble on the Richard Leonard Show, when we get to being sharp and talking, sharp-tongued and all this other bullshit, there's always some kind of excuse. There's always some kind of reason or way that everyone passes the buck. Are we really expected to believe that everything that's wrong with our system, with our society, with our government, with our politicians, with our world in general, are we really supposed to believe that it's always someone else's fault? That it's not our doing. The crisis hotline didn't go down because the VA did anything wrong, or maybe the VA didn't do anything wrong, but a mistake happened, or the power went out and God knows where Utah or wherever, and the server for the hotline went down, whatever the case may be. But yet it's always someone else's fault, and it's always someone else's problem. And at the end of the day, we're going to keep monitoring. We're going to keep monitoring the problem, and we will bring you any further developments as they become available, of course. Let's go. Let's keep going. About 700 callers were affected by these outages, and roughly 500 were reconnected with specialists after a short delay, according to VA officials. Others called back on their own, but staffers acknowledged that not every caller was brought back into the system. The missed calls represented less than 0.1% of the total call volume to the crisis line last year. Since a national 988 number was established, so instead of dialing 911, you dial 988. That was established in July 2022 for suicide intervention. Veterans Crisis Line operators have given nearly 23% increase in calls and nearly 77% increase in texts from individuals seeking emergency mental health aid. So on the hotline, you can call, you can text, and they're supposed to connect you with whatever services are in the area wherever you're at. And sure, 0.1% of all callers throughout the year were affected. But we just got done seeing that 700 callers were affected. Do we, and I hope that this is real information that 500 of them were reconnected with. 500 men or women were called back or sent a text back or somehow reconnected with the hotline and its staff in order to find some emergency care wherever these people were at. 200 were not. And they say here, they acknowledged that not every caller was brought back into the system. And so what I will do is I will give this program in particular, I'll give them props because they're owning it, at least for the callers. I feel like there's a lot of information that's left out, but then again, this is just one article. This is just one person writing about this issue. So those causes or whatever we're missing may be out there. Where are we at here? We know that we're saving veterans' lives, Miller told lawmakers. 2 published studies recently have found veteran callers were over 5 times more likely to have less distress and less suicide ideation at the end of the call compared to the beginning, where, I think it's supposed to say where, 11 times more likely to have reduced suicidal urgency at the end of the call than at the beginning. If that's not a Kamala Harris word salad, I'm not quite sure what is. So what they're saying here is that they have found that the people that they do get into contact with, the people that they do talk to, are 11 times more likely, less likely to actually commit suicide once they are talking to somebody on the hotline, get through the call, all the questions and the conversation, and they're claiming that they feel that these folks feel better. And they're able to articulate the fact that they feel better. And if that's true, then that's great. I mean, how do you argue with that? What I would like to see, if we could, and I will start asking veterans this question when I meet them, have you ever called this hotline, and what was your experience like? I think it's a fair question. He also acknowledged the need to improve the system even more. So people are acknowledging that the system needs to be improved. I'm sure that there's all kinds of things that could be better, more efficient, and easier for the staff to handle these calls, because I'm sure that at times they come a lot heavier. I think around the holidays probably is their busiest time, if I had to guess, but I could be wrong. These outages in the last year varied in scope and impact. However, none of them impacted Veteran Crisis Line services. Our commitment to modernization and improvement is critical to ensuring it can promptly respond when interruptions do arise. Lawmakers on the House panel echoed that sentiment while also encouraging veterans to reach out for help if needed. Despite the system's rare lapses, Tester asked for officials to share specific steps they plan on implementing to analyze past outages and coordinate with other federal agencies to prevent future ones. About 17 veterans a day die as a result of suicide. And this is according to the latest statistics from VA researchers. I guess I'm not quite sure how one can say that none of these outages impacted any veterans. There's still at least 200 veterans out there that nobody has talked to, that tried to call, tried to connect, and weren't able to. We don't know if those missed calls or those missed texts transformed into suicides. And I think that at the end of the day, this one is a hard one to pass a lot of judgment on. It appears to me, and some other research I've done, including this article, that the Veterans Crisis Line is seemingly doing good work. They do have and have had these lapses in service, and that's disappointing because every one call you miss could be the one. Could be another guy or another gal who decides that they don't deserve to be here any longer. And I think that in the wake of Suicide Prevention Awareness Month, that's maybe something that we should think about. Aside from the hotline, right? I think we've talked a lot on this channel. We've talked a lot on the Rumble channel, on the Richard Leonard Show, over on SPN, about suicide. We've talked a lot about things that could be better. Things that could be better for veterans who have served this country, most of them on their own free will, some of them not, as we know. But imagine, if you can, what that thought process might be like. And I think that a lot of people who are leftovers, right? The people who are left behind after somebody decides that they're going to kill themselves, people get real mad, and rightfully so. It's real easy for us to call those folks cowards and sissies. Can't hang, can't hack it, all that stuff, and maybe that's true also. But also put yourself in the position that maybe, in the thought process that maybe those folks might have been in. And think about if you've ever been there. Have you ever been in a position or in a place with hundreds of people and felt all alone? Have you ever felt like no matter what you do, no matter what you say, no matter where you go, no matter how you get there or how you do it or how you say it, it's not going to work out? I think we all have these strings of bad luck at time. When it rains, it pours. And I think for some people, it's really easy to fall into this mindset of, I just don't want to do this. I want to do whatever this is anymore. And then this idea about their own death becomes a little more real, and they start to formulate a plan. They start thinking about, what might be the least most painful, the least amount of suffering, the cleanest way maybe, or maybe the most gruesome, if you will, what is going to leave the biggest mess. Who knows? Who knows what they're thinking? But I'll tell you one thing. It doesn't seem like it's a clear train of thought. And for people that have served this country, I don't know that I believe that they deserve it. I don't know that I believe that veterans deserve to feel that way. And it's a hard one. It's a real hard one, because how do you fix that? How do you stop those feelings from entering? How do you make peace with whatever it is that happened to lead you up into this point in your life to make you feel the way that you feel? It's utter despair. I can't say that I condone it. I can't say that I understand why people go through it or allow themselves to go through it all the way to the end. But I can say I certainly understand how people get there. I think a lot of people have been there. I wish that we could figure out a way to help those people to understand when they do get there, when and if, that they don't have to make that choice. They don't have to be alone. They are not alone. And as so many people have said, it's a very, very permanent solution to a temporary issue. And then you hear people say that even, and you're like, well, it's easy for you to say. But I think it has everything to do with mental toughness. And I think that alone is one of the things in this country that a lot of folks are lacking in. A lot of folks are lacking in the ability to take a shot on the chin and pick your ass up off the dirt. And don't even fucking dust yourself off. Just start walking that path again. Put one foot in front of the other. been lost. Somewhere, somehow in our society, those things have been lost. Sorry for the soapbox. I even talked about it before I even stepped on the thing. But seeing how this is Suicide Awareness Month, Prevention Awareness Month, or whatever they call it, if you have veterans in your life, especially ones that you may not talk to all the time, anybody, not just veterans, but anybody in your life that you may not talk to all the time, but you can think and go, well, maybe I should check. I don't hesitate. Just give them a call, shoot them a text, and just check. You might find that you were the one that saved a life. You might find that you rekindle an old friendship or an old relationship that you can find some value in. Both of you. Do it today, because you never know what tomorrow brings. And I'm a firm believer, folks, in the fact that whenever the time comes, whenever we are laying on that bed, the deathbed, on our deathbed, and we know that the end is near for those of us who will experience that way, we're not going to give a shit about material possessions. We're not going to give a shit about our bank account. We're not going to give a shit about a lot of things. What you are going to care about, I believe, are the people. The people and the relationships that you have and that you have made and you have fostered throughout your life. Because that's what's really important, right? That's what's really important to our own self-growth. That's what's really important to the betterment and the success of our society, I think. We want to just be a good person, right? And all those people around you that live by the same, because we surround ourselves with like people, right? That's the idea. So all those other people that believe in the same things you do, that believe in treating people the way that they would like to be treated, that believe in charity, that believe in helping the common, whatever it is. Those are the things I believe are going to be important. All that other stuff that we do with our lives over all these years, it isn't going to amount to a hill of beans to us, to you when you're laying there at the end of your days. So call them, check on them. You never know. Good night.